In today's video, I'm talking about orchestration and especially one tool that is going to make someone like me, that is not an orchestrator whatsoever, look pretty good. Let me briefly show you what I mean. That sounds pretty cool, actually. So this comes from EastWest, and it's the Hollywood Orchestra Opus Edition. And this is actually the tool that is inside that virtual instrument called the Orchestrator. Let's have a look. Hey, what's up, my friend? Chris Salim here from Mixdown Online. Thank you for being here watching this video. Let's jump right in. So we're going to look at this very cool virtual instrument that comes from EastWest. So first we're going to look at the instrument itself, but mainly the orchestrator part of it, which is what helps me to sound pretty good, you know, even if I'm not myself an orchestrator. And then we're going to look at a very cool technique. It's a MIDI technique with the tools we have in Cubase, which will bring the experience on working with the Hollywood Orchestrator to the next level, especially if you're working in Cubase. Then we're going to look at the pricing and those different options we have with EastWest. So if we dive in Cubase, we have the virtual instrument Opus, which will manage all of your EastWest sample libraries, like I have here on the left. I have like Fab4, Goliath, which are sample libraries that I purchased years ago. Those are going to be managed by Opus. But we also have the EastWest Hollywood Orchestra samples, which are these. And what I'm going to focus on, instead of just diving into the player itself, because, you know, this type of player is made for professional orchestrators also, you know, so we can orchestrate everything manually. But that one tool that we have that is called Hollywood Orchestrator, this is the one I want to focus in today's video, that is more oriented for people like myself or anyone who is starting out as like into orchestration or is new to orchestration or is actually, you know, been orchestrating for a while but still confused about a few things. That is actually a very good tool for these type of people, like myself, basically. And it's an amazing learning tool as well if you just want to use this to get to the next level. So let's open the orchestrator by double-clicking on it on the right side, and this is what we have as far as the player goes. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go and give you a brief look at the main parameters, and we're going to dive right into the sound samples to just have a quick listen on how they sound like. So we have the four sections on top: woodwinds, brass, percussion, strings. At the bottom, we have the keyboard, and we have those colored keys, okay, which are made to mute the different type of instruments. So if I want to mute the woodwinds, I can actually just click on my controller on the C note, and that will mute the woodwind. Same if I want to mute the brass, percussions, and string. Okay, I just retouch those keys afterwards to bring them back on. And the cool thing is, when you're writing music, you're writing your score parts, if you need to mute one of those instrument types, you can, just by writing down a MIDI note in your MIDI event, and that's it. Okay, so this is pretty useful. Then we have on the top here the empty preset. I'm going to click on it, and that will give me the different presets per different category. So we have ensemble, ostinatos, and scores. So basically, those are performances, arrangements that are predefined for you to use, and you can actually dive into those different patterns and edit those to your taste if you want to. So it's pretty well done. So there's a lot you can do with this, like with the orchestrator. So that is pretty nice. So we're going to have a quick listen to what we have if we load the strings long. Let's go with cello lead 3. Now I'm only going to use this small controller, so you don't need a lot to be able to sound good with the orchestrator. So this is going to do well. So let's have a quick listen. Sounds pretty good, you know. So you have like all of the bass, the cellos, violas, violins, all of those all together, blended together, depending on where you hit the keys. Sounds very good, very cool. So let's go and load an ostinato, okay, an ostinato preset. So I'm going to click on, let's go in triplets soft and go with triplets 5. That's pretty cool. Let's go and look at the scores, and this is actually very impressive. Those are more cinematic type arrangements that you can work with to base yourself on and write your own score. Now, the goal is not necessarily to keep everything as is. You can if you want to, but if you want to be original, you can dive even deeper and use these as starting points to work your scores. And I'm going to show you how you can customize those patterns and arrangements within the instrument and also in Cubase. So stay tuned. So let's start with the first one, Dark Hero. Nice. These will give you also the ideal tempo that you can change on top if you're using the standalone Opus instrument. But if you're using the instrument within your DAW, this is going to be synced to the tempo of your DAW. So if I want to change that to 120 BPM, I'm going to need to do so within Cubase, and it will change on top. If we look on the left side of the window, we have all of our instruments within the instrument section we work on. So if I select woodwinds, I'm going to have all the woodwind instruments loaded on this patch, and same for brass, percussions, and strings. From that point, I can actually work those out and change the sound or the type of articulation that I have with those instruments. So for example, if I select this second violin, this piccato, I can actually choose a pizzicato instead, or mercato, staccato, legato, and so on. So I have all those different types of articulation that I can choose from. And I can also change the arranger mode to the lowest, all notes, and all those different voicings that we have here, which is nice. Different octaves also, which is also pretty cool. And we have the patterns, okay, that they actually play. So you actually see those MIDI notes here, which represent the pattern played. And you can edit those if you click on this little pencil tool, and that will bring you to the edit window where you can drag them around, work this out to your taste. You can also write down the different note patterns and so on, you know. So this is pretty practical. So this is one way where you can dive a bit deeper and work on different patterns for a specific instrument within that arrangement. So this shows you how deep you can go with this type of instrument, and shows you also the learning side of this feature that we have with Opus, which is very, very nice. Let's listen to another preset. So let's go this time with Superhero. This one is actually pretty cool. Let's go with Superhero 2. That's pretty nice. Let's go with Elves World. Very sweet. Love this. Black Knight this time. That sounds a bit like a Batman type score. So you get the idea. So that's pretty cool. Let's go with Family Adventure. Those are very good sounded cinematic arrangements you can base yourself on to write your own score. But you can also, again, go into the ensembles and work that out from that part. You know, we checked earlier the string longs, but there's also the full ensemble movie that you can check out. So let's open the Apocalypse 4 and see how that one sounds like. That's pretty cool. So you get the idea. Now, I just want to show you a bit of what we're getting with the instrument as far as the parameters goes. We saw that every single instrument part of an instrument category is listed right here. We also have them listed on the far left zone of that instrument. And this is where you can actually see the MIDI channel they are on, and you can change the output. Also, they are routed to within the instrument itself. If we look on top, we have the zones, the all instance, and we get back to the Hollywood Orchestrator. If you look on top right now, we're into the perform section where all of our instrument libraries are loaded. And if we click on play, we have access to each library and some parameters we can add to those libraries, okay, like the amount of reverb we want to add. The classic mic position is the one loaded by default, but if you have like the premium version, you also have access to soft, which is close mic position, and also epic, which is more of a room mic position, which is quite nice. So this is what you get with play, and then browse is going to bring you to the original window to load a sample library that you have access to. So this is basically what we get with the Orchestrator. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to load a preset, a score preset. Let's go with Dark Hero 4. And I have a little performance that I just recorded. Now I'm going to show you this Cubase technique to export all the MIDI notes out of that performance, which is very cool. So what I'm going to do is to click on Add Track, and I'm going to create a MIDI track. Let's call this one Opus Rec. On this one, the MIDI output, I'm going to click on Not Connected, and the input, I'm going to select Opus MIDI Out, okay? And you have to make sure that the output is not going back into the Opus MIDI in, okay? Or else it's just going to go into a loop. So let me record this performance on this MIDI track. Okay, let me mute this. Now this is my performance. So all of the notes, they are on the same MIDI event, so it's kind of chaotic. So what I'm going to do next is instead of making the colors to velocity, I'm going to bring them to channel, and those are going to be determined by the MIDI channel of each note played. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my event is selected, go under MIDI, click on Dissolve Part, and separate channels, optimized display, click on OK. That will create 16 MIDI channel. So one for each MIDI channel out of the Opus instrument. So this way I can actually dive into all of those separated instrument part of this Opus arrangement and just, work that out to my taste if I want to, which is very nice. And also a very good learning tool if you just want to dive into like orchestration mock-ups, MIDI mock-ups, and check how that is made like straight from the core of those notes, which is very useful on a learning standpoint. Let me just make sure that everything sounds correctly. So on each instrument, I'm going to make sure that the output is going into MIDI in, and the input is going to not connected, or your MIDI controller if you want to. And from the instrument, from the Opus instrument itself, I'm going to make sure that I bypass the orchestrator, okay? So now the MIDI notes are going to trigger the instrument itself and not the pattern played by the orchestrator. So let's have a listen. So this is how it's done in Cubase if you want to export the MIDI performance on separated MIDI channel. And I just want to make a quick shout out to a guy named Stephane Baudoin. He has a YouTube channel talking about orchestration, and this is where I learned how to export from Opus within Cubase on separated MIDI channels. So thank you, my friend. Check out his channel. I'm going to leave the link below. Now let's look at the pricing to get the Hollywood Orchestra Opus Edition. Now I just want to let you know that this is not a sponsored video. EastWest sent me the samples, sent me the instrument for me to try out and to review. I was actually free to make a video or not, and I decided to make one because I actually find it very cool and useful for myself anyways. So if we look at the pricing, let's see, we have like two different options. We can buy the whole package with one fee at $595 at the moment. The regular price is just below $1,000 US, but there's a special going on, I guess. So anyways, the price is at $595, but you can also use the subscription base model if you want to. And that will give you access to all of EastWest sample banks, which is quite nice. So if you're into music composition, that might be a good deal. For the subscription, we're looking at the Composer Cloud service that starts at $19.99 a month. For a monthly subscription, if you buy yearly, it's a bit cheaper. I think it's like $200 for the year, if I'm not mistaken. And there's also the Plus version, and this is where you'll have access to, like when we looked at all those orchestration samples, we have those different types of mic positions. If you want to get access to those close mics and room mic positions, you need the Composer Cloud Plus that is going to give you more samples, and this one is a bit more expensive. And that can be a good option for someone who wants to get access to all of the sample libraries from EastWest. The subscription is actually a cheaper way to get access to all those samples. So there you go, my friend. This is my take on the Hollywood Orchestrator by EastWest. That is part of the Hollywood Orchestra Opus Edition. Check it out. The link is down below. Leave your comments and questions also in the comment section. And until next time, take care and see you.